Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today. It's Saturday, December 22nd, 2012, and we're still all alive, no matter all the fear-mongering of the mainstream media about the doom and gloom and apocalypse. It's funny because for the first time, I saw one lonely old article last night, late last night, or actually it was almost 2 days ago, that was actually saying, well, you know, the Mayans actually say it's not going to be the end of the world, while putting out just almost every article, 9 out of 10 of them, saying that the Mayans said it's going to be the end of the world. So they had to sneak that in at the end after they got the fear levels up. And then they released this nice little engineered blizzard right on time. And, oh, the power went out. Ooh, the power went out. Scare people. Suck some more fear. Whoa, did you know they're naming winter storms now? I didn't know that. Yeah, apparently they're naming these winter-engineered storms through chemtrails that they use in that, aerosols. And they called it, guess what? Draco. Ooh, another way to instill fear. Call the blizzard, the big engineered blizzard of December 21st, Draco. It's all about sucking up that fear, right? So we have UN defends NATO's premeditated genocide in Syria as long-planned sectarian bloodbath unfolds. UN deceitfully labels atrocities as reprisals. Back in 2007, it was reported that U.S., Israel, and Saudi Arabia together were not only organizing, funding, and training and arming militants directly linked to al-Qaeda to be used against Syria and Iran, but knew well in advance that by doing so they would trigger an unprecedented cataclysmic conflicts already driven by sectarian extremism. Not only was such sectarian violence expected, it was desired ahead of redrawing a new map for the Middle East, one that favored the Western corporate financier and geopolitical interests, while keeping the region weak, divided, and infighting. Which makes, you know, this whole thing about, oh, al-Qaeda is growing powerful and Syria is turning into sectarian conflict. Well, everybody warned them of that, and now they have it. But they don't care about people dying, and right now hundreds of thousands of Syrian people that have had to flee as refugees and are starving and freezing right now. They don't give a shit about them, just like they don't give a shit about the people that are still in Syria, right? They're going to use them as pawns so they get the regime change, like this article says, for corporate financiers. They want to go in there and get a cushy regime change so they can exploit their resources. Now the UN is feigning indignation over the inevitable, increasingly overt sectarian nature of the so-called Free Syrian Army and its so-called rebellion. Entire communities and minorities face extermination. To blunt the impact this will have on public opinion, UN Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide has preemptively stated, I am deeply concerned the entire communities risk paying the price for crimes committed by the Syrian government. Actually, Seymour Hersh's article back in 2007 was saying what? The U.S. has also taken part in clandestine operations aimed at Iran and its ally Syria, besides Lebanon and other areas. A byproduct of these activities has been bolstering of Sunni extremist groups that espouse a militant vision of Islam and are hostile to America and sympathetic to al-Qaeda. You can go in there and check out all these different quotes that were given leading up to this, so people were warned. So the UN once again is abusing its self-appointed authority by excusing and spinning premeditated sectarian genocide designed to advance a documented conspiracy admitted years ago. More recently, this conspiracy to destroy Syria through engineered and purposely protracted violence was documented further by the very corporate financiers themselves amongst the papers and the policy think tanks. Remember this, from Brookings Institute, Saving Syria, assessing options for regime change, openly stated they sought to bleed Syria and purposefully protracted violence to get the regime change and what they wanted. So a post-ABC poll says U.S. involvement in Syria is supported and not supported. In general, Americans widely oppose U.S. military involvement in Syria, but majorities support establishing a no-fly zone and direct action, or if direct action rises if chemical weapons are used by the government. So the first couple were kind of encouraging, right, as far as mind control and brainwashing of the masses, and just, again, using people's emotions to not really oppose this and support these atrocities for these global corporations, if there's a reason, right? Kind of like weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Says, do you support or oppose the Obama regime's decision to recognize an organization of Syrian rebel groups as a legitimate government of Syria? Everybody knew that they were Al-Qaeda, so they couldn't help but say, oh yeah, 47% opposed. Do you think the U.S. military should or should not get involved in the situation in Syria? Says, should not get involved, 73%. So here's where the spin comes in. What if the Syrian government uses chemical weapons against its people? In that case, would you support or oppose U.S. military involvement in Syria? So it says 63% would support U.S. military involvement in Syria if Syrian government uses chemical weapons against its people. So he's already said he's not going to, and if he uses them, he'll probably use them against the rebels, which are actually foreigners, so they wouldn't be against his people. What if the Syrian government loses control of its chemical weapons stockpile? Again, this is the pretext for actually going in there. In that case, would you support or oppose U.S. military involvement? 70% said they would support military involvement if the Syrian government loses control of its chemical weapons. Well, we already know that the United States and the West are actually training these Syrian rebels, which are known Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists, how to, quote, handle these chemical weapons stockpile. We know that they know how to handle them because we actually saw a video on YouTube that were supposedly these Syrian rebels saying, here you go, Assad, this is going to be you, and actually killing rabbits in a little cage while releasing some, I think it was sarin gas or something like that. So they have a hold of them. It's only a matter of time until they use them, and then they'll blame it on the Syrian government. And then, of course, the stupid Sheeple will support that war. See, they never learned. They didn't learn the first time, and they didn't learn again. So how many times do they have to go through this? These Iraq WMDs, 9/11 crap, lies, that are so obvious when you start scratching it, right? But they don't. So, and they go in there and they said they'll support a no-fly zone, and it says here, it says, what if Syria attacked neighboring countries that are U.S. allies? In other words, Turkey, right? Or who is actually heading up the whole terrorist front and arming these terrorists to go in there. In that case, would you support or oppose U.S. military involvement? 69%. So that's just people feeling like they have to get in other people's business, right? As their own country. They live in a police state. They have every day that goes by, more wealth is consolidated into fewer hands. They have to work harder and harder. Isn't that interesting that as more wealth gets consolidated into fewer hands, into these people who basically don't do a damn thing to, they don't actually get in the mines and start digging. They don't break their backs at work every day. No, they just scheme and scam on how to steal the wealth and labor, the results of people's labor. And so they get more and more as every day goes by. And every day that goes by, you hear how people have to, I can't retire, I got to keep working until I drop dead. We're going to have to work longer hours. And, if I want to receive my pension, I have to keep working. And like little mice in the cage, they'll think that we have to do this to survive, right? We have to keep perpetuating this monetary usury system, the slave system, in order to survive. We can't just try to break free from this and form our own type of way of living. Got to do it. So they support it. Spain's top satellite company, Hispasat, has ordered satellite provider Overon to take Iranian channels, Press TV, and Hispan TV off the air. The Spanish company said the decision is in line with EU sanctions against the head of Iran. Alright, it says here that it's worth mentioning that Hispasat is partly owned by the Paris-based Eutelsat satellite company that removed Iranian channels off the air in October. So it says here, professor calls on EU to label Hezbollah terrorists. They've been trying to do this forever. The Israeli envoy to UN demands enforcement of the Security Council resolution. Yeah, who the hell are they to do that when they ignore the nuclear proliferation treaty? So I'll just bypass that, talking about disarming Hezbollah. And then, of course, you saw in the beginning video, the first one about Hegel and how he wouldn't declare the Islamic republics, basically Iran's special forces, elite military, as a terrorist organization. You can see the hypocrisy here. Can you imagine if China or Iran or Russia declared the Marine Corps a terrorist organization? I mean, I'm not going to go there and say that they're not used in missions that are immoral, unethical, but just imagine if they did that. People being up in arms here. Brainwashed sheeple in America. Canada drops Iranian opposition group from terror list. So Canada's regime said they removed an Iranian opposition group once allied with Saddam Hussein's Iraqi regime. the Mujahideen, or MEK, following similar moves by the U.S. and the European Union. So you see that? They take the terrorists off the terrorist list when it suits their needs, and then they fund terrorists openly, and they declare that Al Qaeda is actually the representative of the Syrian people, a bunch of foreigners. It's madness. We have the graphic novel declared a terrorist operation by the U.S. government. The story is almost too bizarre to believe, as a journalist, David Axe, wrote a graphic novel about the Lord's Resistance Army rebel group in Congo, which many people are aware are due to controversial viral Kony 2012 story from earlier this year, which was, like I said before, the guy who was actually dead already, kind of like a bin Laden, and they were just using that to basically reignite African colonialism. Again, exploit the resources. No matter what you think about the situation with Kony, it seems bizarre that the book itself, which is just about Kony, should be declared a product of a terrorist organization, and the money associated with it has been frozen. So again, this is, everyone's talking about banning the guns, but they should be looking for banning free speech. It says here, UN Security Council approves military mission in Mali. Again, so here they go, aiming to reclaim northern stretches of Mali from the extremists that were created by the invasion of Libya. The United Nations Security Council on Thursday approved the deployment of African-led forces in the West African nation for a year. I believe they have gold or silver and oil there. So, France acknowledges brutal role in Algeria. They acknowledge the unjust and brutal nature of France's occupation of Algeria for 132 years, but stopped short of apologizing. And the Nobel Peace Prize winner, President Obama, has been named Times Person of the Year, architect of this new America. So Cryptagon editor says, where does one even start? U.S. President Obama has been named Times Magazine Person of the Year for 2012. Quote, we are in the midst of historic, cultural, and demographic changes, and Obama is both the symbol and in some ways the architect of this new America, Time editor told NBC's Today Show, where he announced the selection on Wednesday. All right, guys. Well, I was going to try to continue here, but my computer is so frozen up, and I really can't do anything. So I'm just going to close that out here at this video, and then I'll bust out in the third video, and we'll cover some of the what was going on around this Connecticut shooting. This is GGN. I'm Darko. Thank you.